Welcome to another episode of the AI-driven Swebbcast. The source content is all Swebb, but the interpretation and presentation is all AI.
All right, so are you ready for this?
Always. Hit me.
Okay, good. Because today we're going deep on church planting and ministry growth.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and this isn't just for pastors, by the way.
Right.
You know, this is like for anyone who wants to build a movement or attract followers or make an impact.
I like it.
Yeah, it's like a masterclass.
Mm-hmm.
We get to see how experienced leaders think and make decisions. We've got, this transcript is a coaching call between Swebb, who's a well-known church consultant.
Right.
And he is advising a pastor who's expanding his ministry
Okay.
across Florida. And right from the jump,
Right away. Yeah.
Swebb zeroes in on something super crucial,
Yeah.
setting realistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's pointing out that, this pastor has tons of energy.
Yeah.
People are drawn to him.
He's got the charisma.
Yeah. But that initial excitement,
Yeah.
it doesn't always turn into that sustainable growth.
Right. And especially, I think, the case here is he's spreading himself kind of thin across multiple locations.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing if you've got one church, but this guy is going to multiple cities.
Multiple cities.
And Swebb even makes this distinction, right?
Yes.
Between building a really strong home-based church
Right.
and what he calls these extension sites.
Extension sites, yeah. Which I think is a really good distinction.
It is.
Because a lot of churches try to plant, and they immediately are trying to replicate everything they do at the home base in these other locations.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the pastor's talking about driving from Orlando to Tampa, dealing with traffic.
Yeah, he mentions a dead body on the side of the road.
Yeah, dead body.
I mean, imagine that drive.
Yeah, I don't think I would have continued going to Tampa after that. I think I would just been like, nope, we're not supposed to be there. But and then he gets there and he's got an offering of $140 for all that.
And he's got to pay his musicians.
And that, I think, is a really powerful reminder that passion and hustle don't
Don't pay the bills.
equal financial stability.
And also, it made me think about the bigger point that Swebb is making here, right? Which is the dangers of building something just on one person's charisma.
Mm-hmm.
Even he mentions some pretty well-known pastors, right? Like Redacted and Redacted.
Yeah.
Pointing out that people might come to hear the main preacher.
Right.
But are they bought in?
Yeah, are they committed?
Yeah, exactly. Are they loyal to the staff, the vision,
the overall vision,
the teaching, the whole thing?
Exactly.
So how do you avoid that? Well, Swebb's answer is discipleship.
Right.
And this is where I think this conversation takes a really fascinating turn.
It does. Dan.
Because he's challenging the pastor to think about what's the difference between informing people and truly discipling them. And he makes this really interesting contrast, right? He compares how modern discipleship is often done, like a class once a week or a quick little devotional.
Right.
And he contrasts that with how Jesus spent 3 years.
3 years.
Walking with his disciples.
Right.
Talking with them.
Yeah.
Really investing in their lives.
Yeah. Really, really getting deep with them.
It is a stark difference.
It is. Yeah.
And it makes you kind of wonder,
It does.
how are we even defining discipleship
Yeah.
in our own lives?
What does it even look like?
Are we really walking the walk?
Yeah.
Or are we just talking the talk?
Exactly.
And then as the conversation unfolds, we see this pastor and he's grappling with something, right?
Yeah.
This very real problem, finances.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about staff pay cuts. He's talking about having to rely on volunteers more.
Right.
And it's that, it's a constant tension, right?
It is.
Between wanting to pursue this mission,
Yeah.
but also facing the very real practicalities of running an organization.
Right.
And what's so interesting about this is that Swebb doesn't come in with here's the magic answer.
Right.
Here's the 3-step formula.
Here's how you raise $1 million.
Yeah, he doesn't do any of that.
Right.
What he talks about is adding value.
Mm-hmm.
And he says this amazing thing. He goes, value is gravity.
Oh, I like that.
Meaning that if you're truly making a difference in people's lives,
Right.
then the money is going to follow.
Right.
It will be attracted to that. And he even encourages the pastor to think outside the box when it comes to staffing.
Mm-hmm.
Put the best people in the best roles.
Yeah.
Don't be limited by
Yeah.
traditional job titles or
Yeah.
pay scales or whatever.
Right.
It's about maximizing your impact.
Yeah.
And building a team that's really aligned with the mission.
Excellent.
And then this brings us to the big debate.
The spicy one.
Should churches pay their musicians?
Oh, yeah. This is a hot one.
And this is where I think things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because Swebb starts to criticize what he calls this green room culture.
Oh, the green room.
Right, where it's the talent needs to be,
Yeah, you got to cater to them.
pampered and
Yeah.
treated special. And
coddled.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right.
And he argues that a lot of times it's actually more important to build relationships and a sense of shared ownership of the church
Yeah.
rather than offering financial incentives.
Right.
And he makes this really interesting comparison.
Yeah. What's that?
He's like, we don't expect our children's ministry volunteers
Right.
to be performing like at a Grammy level, right?
Right.
So like, why should we hold musicians to this like different standard?
And it makes you wonder, like, what are we actually prioritizing?
Yeah. What are the values?
Yeah.
Are we about the music itself?
Yeah.
Or are we about something,
Yeah.
deeper?
Yeah. Are we about creating community or just a show?
Exactly. What are we valuing?
Right. What's important to us?
The message we're sending.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is a good question to ask ourselves.
It is. And it leads to his next big idea.
Okay.
Stewarding momentum.
Oh, interesting.
This is where I think Swebb's like strategic thinking really shines through.
Yeah.
He starts talking about the natural ebb and flow of like church attendance throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are peaks and valleys.
Yeah. Are there certain times of year when people just like naturally are more interested in church or less?
Exactly. And he even compares it to like surfing.
Okay.
It's like you don't create the waves.
Right.
You ride them.
You ride them.
So you got to understand like those rhythms
Right.
and then, plan accordingly.
Yeah, so it sounds like instead of, launching like this huge initiative in January when everyone's probably like still recovering from the holidays,
Right.
like maybe save that for, I don't know, springtime or something when people are more receptive to a new challenge.
Exactly. Or a deeper dive.
Deeper dive.
He even talks about like tailoring the Easter message to the specific type of audience that you're probably going to get at that time of year.
Interesting.
Because it's not always your like regular crowd, right?
Yeah.
You can have guests and visitors and people who like maybe haven't been to church in a long time.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah.
Like I can see how that principle would apply to like so many things.
Oh, yeah.
Not just church attendance, right?
Yep.
Like if you're thinking about, when to do a fundraising push,
Yep.
when to plan community outreach events.
Mm-hmm. It's like marketing, but like on a much deeper level.
Right.
Yeah, it's like,
It's tapping into those natural rhythms of life.
yeah, exactly. And connecting with people
Yeah.
on that deeper level.
And I also thought it was really interesting how he talked about using AI to analyze like this call transcript.
Oh, yeah, that was a cool little like side note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's like, just feed the transcript into the machine, let it do the heavy lifting.
And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Right. Exactly.
Like we have all these tools. It's
Yeah.
about how we can use them to make our lives easier.
Achieve our goals.
Exactly.
To work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. And it kind of brings us back to this like core idea of sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Like Swebb is encouraging this pastor to like really define what success looks like for him, not based on like external pressures.
Right. Not trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah. Or like what other churches are doing.
Right.
But on his own, like values and his mission.
Yeah, I love that because it's so easy to compare ourselves to others.
Right.
And to get caught up in like what everybody else is doing that we lose sight of like what's truly important to us.
And that resonates with me so much because it's like,
Yeah.
we don't have to buy into someone else's definition of success, right?
Exactly.
It's about creating something that is like authentic,
Meaningful, sustainable.
something that's really like true to who we are
Yes.
and what we believe in.
And sometimes that means saying no to opportunities that might seem really tempting, right?
Yes, that's okay.
But deep down, they're not a good fit.
They're not the right fit.
Yeah, and Swebb even advises this pastor, is like, look, if going to these certain locations, it's not producing results, or if it's just draining your energy, maybe you need to cut back.
Right.
Maybe you need to let go.
It's like pruning a tree.
Ooh, I like that.
Right? You cut away the dead branches
Yeah.
so that the healthy ones can thrive.
Yeah, and that's true for so many things in life.
It is.
Like you think about your work projects. Mm-hmm.
Your relationships, even just like your habits.
Yeah.
Sometimes letting go.
It's the key to growth.
Yeah.
It's about focusing your energy on what matters most.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive here, let's bring it back to you, the listener, right?
Okay.
Like, what does all this mean for your life?
That's the big question.
It is, right. Because whether you're leading a team, building a project,
building a business,
just trying to live a more intentional life, right?
Yeah.
I think there's so much we can glean from Swebb's approach here.
Absolutely, I agree.
And one of the biggest takeaways for me, I think, is just defining your expectations. Like, what does success really look like?
For you.
For you.
Right.
Not for anybody else.
Not for your neighbor, not for your parents, not for social media.
Not for social media.
For you.
Exactly. And then, like, what are your non-negotiables?
Yeah. What are your values? What are your priorities?
I mean, what are you willing to, like, sacrifice to get there?
Yeah. Because everything has cost, right?
It does.
So you got to be willing to pay the price.
It's that crucial starting point.
It is.
Because once you have clarity on those things,
Yeah.
then you can actually start building a plan that's sustainable.
That's going to work for the long haul.
Yes.
That's not just going to fizzle out after a couple of months.
And the other big takeaway, I think, is invest in deep, meaningful relationships.
Oh, I like that.
This is not about, like, networking or transactional connections, right?
Right. This isn't about like how many followers you have on Instagram.
No, it's about building trust, empowering others.
Creating a culture of mutual respect.
Yes.
Yeah, where everybody feels valued.
And it's community over audience.
Oh, I love that.
It's not about like how many people you can get in a room.
Yeah, it's about the quality of the relationships, not just the quantity.
Exactly, and surrounding yourself with people who share your values and are committed to like the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly.
And then finally, like remember that concept of mapping your momentum.
Mapping your momentum.
Pay attention to those rhythms and cycles.
The ebb and flow.
In your life, in your work.
Right.
And like work with them, not against them.
Yeah. Don't try to force things when the timing isn't right.
Yeah.
Be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Be persistent.
Yeah.
And trust the process.
Yeah. Now, before we wrap up completely, I do want to circle back to that musician debate.
Oh, yeah. The hot topic.
For a minute.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly a hot button issue.
It is.
And I'm curious to hear your take on it.
Okay.
You know, as someone who has worked with all kinds of organizations, seen different approaches.
Right.
Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a really complex issue.
It is.
And there's no easy answer.
Right.
You know? On the one hand, I completely understand Swebb's point about, you know, the potential dangers of prioritizing talent over character.
Right.
And, you know, the importance of fostering genuine generosity within a church.
Yeah, we don't want to create this culture where it's all about, like, the performance.
Right, exactly.
Or the paycheck.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we live in a world where, like, skilled musicians, this is how they make a living.
This is their profession.
Yeah. Like, is it fair to expect them to, like, donate their time and energy week after week, especially
if they're helping the organization.
Right. They're contributing to the bottom line.
Yeah, they're bringing in people.
Yeah, so how do you navigate that tension?
Yeah, it's tough.
It is.
I think it comes down to finding a balance that works for each unique situation.
Okay.
You know, some organizations might offer, you know, stipends or honorariums as a way of, like, acknowledging the value of a musician's time and skill, but others might prioritize creating opportunities for, like, professional development or simply, like, fostering a culture of deep appreciation and support.
So it sounds like there's not a one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
It really depends.
Right. It really depends on, you know, the context, the values of the organization, the needs of the musicians.
And that's a great point, I think, to kind of transition into something you were touching on earlier, which is, like, letting go of what's no longer working.
Right.
You know, Swebb was encouraging this pastor to, like, really reimagine the traditional church model. And I think that's a really powerful idea for all of us.
Absolutely.
Because it's so easy to get stuck in our routines and cling to what's familiar.
Right.
Even when it's not really serving us anymore.
Even when it's hurting us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Whether it's a job, a relationship, a habit, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to ask ourselves those tough questions. Those hard questions.
It's like, is this still working?
Right. Is this actually benefiting me?
So as you reflect on this deep dive, here's a final thought to kind of chew on, right?
Right. I'm ready.
Think about one area of your life where maybe you're clinging to outdated models.
Right. Old ways of doing things.
Assumptions. Yeah. Maybe it's the way you approach your work, your relationships, even your own personal growth.
Yeah.
And what if you challenge those assumptions?
Oh, I like that.
What if you said, like, is this way of doing things still serving me?
Yeah. Is it aligned with my values?
Is it aligned with my goals?
Yeah.
Am I just holding on out of, like, habit or fear?
Fear of the unknown.
Right. Exactly.
It's scary to change.
It is. It's scary to let go.
But sometimes it's necessary.
It is. And it's like Swebb was challenging that pastor to reimagine church.
Yeah.
We can reimagine, like, anything, right?
Our careers.
Our relationship.
Our habits. Yeah.
Our own personal growth.
Our mindsets. Everything.
It's an invitation to let go.
Let go of what's not working.
And embrace those new possibilities.
The possibilities are endless.
That's a great note to end on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was fun.
We'll be back next week with another fascinating exploration.
Can't wait.
All right. Until then, keep asking questions, keep challenging assumptions, and keep diving deep.
Dive deep, everybody.
Are you going to do something with what you just heard? Or are you just trying to be entertained? Share this episode, then connect with Swebb. Bring him to your headquarters or visit him in Austin, Texas. Swebb is a productive disruptor for leaders and teams in churches and marketplace organizations. His goal is to make you better first, make you a friend later. Swebb serves leaders and executive teams around the world, primarily focused on helping organizations maximize what they say they want to do. He drives you to execute on your expectations, even if it hurts your ego. He's not here to please everyone, nor does he seek validation. But if you're serious about elevating your leadership and team performance, you'll know where to find him. Connect with Swebb at swebb.fyi or on Instagram at swebbfyi. You doing all you said you do, that's what the church and the world needs.